Hello, welcome to episode 76 of Your Ultimate Comeback. I'm your host, Brad. My co-host, Raquel, is not here again. She's out watching her daughter, Quinn, play beach volleyball. I think she has 2 more weeks being away with Quinn, and then she'll be back. Miss her. Can't wait to have her back. So today is going to be kind of a short and sweet episode. I'm just going to kind of talk about something personal happening in my life, and it's interesting. It's been a little bit of a rough 13 days. I don't know exactly how many days it's been. And I almost wasn't going to talk about it because it makes me feel a little bit like a fraud. I talk a lot about stress and trying to beat stress and be resilient to stress. And 13 days ago, I got my first outbreak of shingles. And if you know what shingles are, it is a reoccurrence of the dormant chickenpox vaccine. And it is brought back to life when you're under a state of chronic stress and a suppressed immune system over a long period of time. So obviously, I thought I was handling my stress well, and I wasn't. And it is absolutely miserable. I've never dealt with it. It's probably one of the most miserable things I've ever experienced in my life. The nerve pain, mine wraps all the way around the left side of my ribs, from the middle of my stomach all the way to my spine. The most intense pain I've ever felt in my life. There were 3 nights in a row I didn't sleep at all because the pain was so. It got really bad for me at night. I called it a 12 out of 10. I feel like someone was just either burning me with fire, like a match or a lighter, or I was being electrocuted, or I was having really intense muscle spasms. It was crazy. Like, put me on my knees. It's been brutal. And in all honesty, we don't talk a lot about vaccines. A lot of people are really against vaccines. I don't know. This one I will definitely go get after I've had this. A few months after I'm done, I can go get it. And I don't care what anyone has to say about it. Say what you want about it. I'm definitely going to get it because I never want to have to deal with this again. And I know it'll reduce my risk by about 90%, and that's all worth it to me. So I will definitely be getting this vaccine. Just going to throw that out there. Whether you like them or not, I don't really care. Personally, I'm going to make sure I never get this again because it's been brutal. So what I want to talk about is, as I'm going through this, knowing that it's driven by stress, I literally grabbed my notebook and I immediately started writing down all the things I was going to change to help my stress and, prioritize my sleep, make sure I eat 3 meals a day, drink my water. I started going through all the things I know to improve stress. I'm like, wait a minute. I've been doing all these things really well. I've been eating well. I've been sleeping well. I've been hydrating well. I've been working out well. I've been taking the peptides, my supplements, everything. I'm incredibly dialed in. I was actually, at first I was surprised that it came on because I was feeling so good. A couple weeks ago, I released a clip of one of the podcasts that was about stress and its impact on the immune system. And I really upset a lot of people with that one, and I don't understand why. But I'll give you an example. Multiple people in my family were really sick with really bad flu. For a month, there was someone in our household was really sick with the flu, and I never got it. So, the whole thing is like, oh, well, I have a strong immune system because I'm whatever. I didn't get sick. But then within a week of that being over, I end up with shingles. And you can't get shingles when your immune system is super strong. So high levels of stress suppress your immune system and can create a lot of havoc if that goes on for a long period of time. But typically what happens is you don't get sick a lot. And there's a perfect example, just reiterating what I was talking about, that when you have high levels of stress, it suppresses your immune system. And oftentimes that means the immune system can't activate, do what it needs to do to fight off viruses and illnesses and sickness. And so you don't get sick a lot until usually you go on vacation or something like that, or you push it too far, too long like I did, and something like the shingles shows up. So just kind of funny, more validation of this topic I was talking about that really upset a lot of people. And man, some of you are pretty nasty with the comments you like to say to people you don't know. It's kind of funny how what comes out of people's mouths when they're behind a computer. But whatever makes you feel good and tough about yourself. But what I want to talk about is the more I started taking notes, I decided to switch from, wait a minute, this isn't the answer. I need to do a deep dive and find what is creating my stress? Like, why was my stress level so out of control that it led to this? Because I thought that I was doing things pretty well. I had good energy. I was sleeping well. I thought I was doing it well, but obviously I wasn't. And as I started to really get honest with myself, I started finding there's some things in my life that I do that have nothing to do with fitness, nothing to do with nutrition, supplements, or anything like that, that if I'm being super honest with myself, I believe are the catalysts that cause this. So I'm just going to kind of go through those. And maybe you struggle with some of these, maybe you don't, but I'm just going to get kind of honest and open and vulnerable and share with you what I believe led to my stress levels being so elevated for so long, leading up to this attack. I think number one, I honestly lack boundaries. I don't say no enough. I'm kind of a yes guy. If you need my help, I'm going to say yes. And I look back at my schedule the last few months, I'm seeing 60 plus appointments every week, usually 10 to 12 a day. I'm taking my kids to every practice. I'm taking them to all their workouts. I had two different gyms outside my private clientele that I was working on running. I was just overcommitted to the max. And you just can't run like that. And what happens to me is it leads to fatigue. And then fatigue for me leads to procrastination, which then leads to disorganization, which then leads to unneeded stress. And what I do when the fatigue kicks in is I have all kinds of tricks and tools, more caffeine, nicotine pouches, all kinds of things that can drive my energy to keep me up and running and keep my brain going to get everything done I need to get done. It didn't turn out so well. So I've created a new rule for myself. And it's simply this. If it's not a hell yes, it's a no. And it scares me when I say that, but because I am not the typical person that will say no to people when they need help, but I have got to put me first. As I've been battling the shingles and the pain and I'm not sleeping and some weird things have happened, like a lot of chest pain on the left side of my chest that I'm getting checked out, and they believe it's just the virus causing the muscle spasms and all that stuff and all the systemic inflammation that comes along with the shingles. And actually a crazy stat is you have a 60% increase in risk of a heart attack in the first 2 weeks of a case of shingles. And as I was thinking about it, I'm like, holy shit, if I die, what happens? Like, first off, my clients will just find a new trainer. That's pretty obvious. Yeah, some of them might miss me a little bit. I have some good relationship with a lot of them, but the reality is their lives will go on and really not have much of an impact. They'll find a new trainer, they'll move on, they'll find someone else to take care of their health, their fitness. But my children will be devastatingly impacted. Like I'm really involved in their lives, and I know they need me, and I'm a dad that's really involved. And if I go now, like that's bad. And so I'm sitting here having this conversation with myself as to why am I saying yes to everyone else and risking sacrificing the ones that really matter the most to me. So my new rule is if it's not a hell yes, it's a no. So I've separated myself from a couple endeavors I was involved in that were taking a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of energy, creating a lot of stress, and providing no return. And just whittling it down to the things that are very important to me, that are the most impactful for me, and that's what I'm focusing on. Number two, avoiding tough conversations. I'm the worst at this, and what happens when a tough conversation comes up and needs to be had, and I know it needs to be had, I will convince myself that I can outwork it, I can figure it out, I don't have to have the conversation, and then they never work. You have to have the conversation. And then by the time the point comes where the conversation is forced to happen, there's no other options, it's 10 to 100 times worse than if we just would have had the conversation the very first time that I knew the conversation needed to be taking place. I'm really bad at that. And I think that created a lot of stress in my life. There were multiple situations in my life that I knew a while ago, sometimes up to a year ago, that I needed to have specific conversations with different people in my life. And I chose not to have them, thinking I could fix it or make it different or something. And it created a lot of burden and stress and regret and resentment and all those things. And I think that contributed to my overload of stress. And then last, the third thing that I think it was that I've really lacked a clear path for my life over the last probably 6, 7 years, maybe even 8 years now. I remember, I think it was 2016, I kind of got forced out and bought out of my business, walked out of that. I was a little lost. Started speaking, really loved that. Wrote a book, loved that. Then marriage issues, that changed my life. Wasn't long after that, COVID hit. And all of a sudden, I couldn't go out and speak. I was just isolated. I had no job. I couldn't work anything anyway that way. Then my dad passes away. He was one of my best friends. That was devastating. I don't work for 18 months. And now all of a sudden, I'm in a place where I got to figure out how to survive. And so I went back to training clients. I'm like, okay, I'm just going to do this for a short window of time until things come back online. And then I'm going to figure out what's next. I fast forward 5 years and I'm still deep in the trenches with clients. Like I said, 60 appointments a week, 10, 12 a day, just beating the hell out of myself at my age, just trying. I'm still, if I'm being honest, it's just all about survival. There's nothing I'm doing that's going to create a realm of potential that I'm really excited about for my future. It's just kind of the same thing week in, week out. Just doing everything I can to provide for my children and make sure they have all their dreams being reached and their goals being met. And I kind of forgot about myself. And I haven't come up with an answer to that one yet. I remember, if you remember, Mara, she was one of our guests on here early on with, I can't remember what she does, called Human Design. Thank you. She had done my human design, was going over all that with me. And one of the things she told me with my human design is that I'm not the type to create things. But what happens in my life is that people will bring an invitation to be a part of something. They see my strengths, they can utilize my strength. And when I run with that, that's when I find the good stuff in my life. Well, what I did was I didn't listen to that part and I started to try to force things. I want to do this, I want to do that. And I went against my human design and that led to a lot of stress. But recently I've had an invitation, an offer actually from Stephanie Gambetta's company, The Loop Way, to be a part of something that I really believe is going to have a massive impact on our world. And they're putting me into a position that really utilizes my strengths and the things that I love to do. So I think that for sure that is one arena that I'm going to focus on to help propel my path in life to something that I enjoy more. But then outside of that, I really need to define, like, what is it in it for me? Like, what do I need? I've been so focused on what do my kids need? What do I got to do to get them to where they want to be? Everything's been about everyone else, nothing about myself. And so what I really am going to focus on is creating a life that I'm proud of instead of a life that I'm just surviving. And I think that was a big contributor of underlying stress was that I don't even have a hobby. I'm going to be super honest. I do not have a hobby. I work, I hang with my kids, I take them to all their stuff. I don't have a hobby. Like there's nothing I go to do for myself. And that sounds kind of pathetic to say out loud, but I haven't created any time for a hobby, let alone taking the time to find one. And I don't think that's good. And my hobby is not working out because I'm in the gym 10, 12 hours a day. I actually, am I being super honest with you? I hate staying in the gym longer to work out. Working out is not something I go do to enjoy. It's something I go do because I have to, because of what I do. So I'm going to try to restructure that to where exercise becomes something I get to do because I love it. And I want to find some other hobbies. Again, I have no idea what those are going to be, but I got to start finding some time throughout my week that's dedicated towards me and the hobby that I want to go explore and get good at versus being so focused on helping everyone else go after their dreams, their hobbies, what it is they want in life. And I think that will really alleviate a lot of the undertone of stress that I'm dealing with that outweighed everything I do to try to fight stress. And I think most people probably have some underlying like mental, emotional things like I just went over with you that are causing unneeded sources of stress for them. Maybe one of these connect with you. I don't know. I know last week with Stephanie, we talked about some of the things she dealt with and the fears of wanting to move on to a better life. There's a lot of things that I think that we go through that we don't really think about as sources of stress, but they will get us. I believe, if I'm being really honest with myself, as I went through this process, that I really believe those three things were massive sources of stress that took me out. And I can't outsleep it. I can't out supplement it. I can't out peptide it. I can't out meditate it. I have to just go in and fight those and solve those and come up with some answers, some solutions to those realms. So again, my big things is create a life I'm proud of versus trying to survive. If it's not a hell yes, it's a no. I think that's a really powerful, and I heard that one years ago and I ignored it. sounded great. Like, yeah, that sounds awesome. And then I just kept saying yes to help everything out. And then what I end up doing is I resent myself for saying yes to things that I shouldn't have said yes to. And I'm going to work really hard to create some boundaries in my life, specifically around my schedule. I'm going to get really structured around here are the times that I see clients. I am not opening it up outside of that. I'm going to be really structured on here's my time with my kids. I am not opening it up to something else. Here are the times that are meant for me. I'm going to get really structured around that. And just saying that gives me anxiety because I know how tight my schedule is, but I can't outwork this. And that solution is not working. For the longest time, I grew up believing that you could outwork everything. And the person who worked the hardest, who did the most, was always going to be the most successful. I don't buy that theory. I've tested it my whole life, and all that's happened is multiple episodes like this. In different outcomes, my life has ended up in a really bad place because I put so much effort and intensity and commitment into solving things or creating change. I've done it with too much exercise. I've done it with too much work. I've done it in a lot of different pathways. And they've all ended up in a state of you're unhappy, you feel like hell, you look like hell, and you're worse off than you were before you started all this. And so it breaks my heart when I watch people try to fight life this way. If I just exercise super hard and I get super committed and go all in and I sacrifice on my food, it's going to change how my body looks and life's going to get better. It's not, right? No matter how good I looked, it didn't really have much of an impact on my life. I'm now looking at, okay, I got to use fitness, nutrition, and all these things to stay healthy, to have great energy, to be present for the people I love, and to do everything I can in my power to avoid hitting this spot again. I've done it too many times at my age, and I'm not good at learning the lesson. Same thing with work. The answer to creating more revenue, more income, a better life is not just to work more and more and more and more. It's just not. And I've tried it for decades now. And what happens, and I see it a lot with a lot of my striving individuals who want to create a different life, they just grind themselves into the ground. You know what? Some of them make it. And one of the worst things I heard was a client of mine made it. He was making so much money that he could buy whatever he wanted, whenever he wanted. There was never anything he couldn't buy. And he told me that was the most miserable point of his life. Because he realized that he got there, that place we think we get to, where there is nothing is out of your price range. You can do what you want, when you want, buy anything you want, whenever you want. And he realized it provided zero happiness. It was actually the most unhappy he ever was in his life. And so I know that that's not the case. And I don't know why I keep driving with the work thing, but I got to really create boundaries around that. So I hope this helps a little bit. Again, like I said, I feel a little bit like a fraud that like I talk a lot about stress and I talk a lot about how to beat stress and how to attack stress and how to be resilient to stress. And I end up with shingles. It's a really hard thing for me to deal with. And I hope this helps, even if it just helps one person, find a solution, bring the stress levels down a little bit, decrease your risk of getting something like this, because my God, it's horrific. Like literally a 49-year-old grown man on my knees crying in the middle of the night one night because the pain was so intense and so unbearable, and I was so tired from not sleeping multiple nights in a row. You want to do anything and everything you can to avoid this because nothing's worth this. And so for me, oftentimes how I have to learn is things have to get really bad and put me on my knees to force me to look deeper to make the right changes. So again, I just kind of share with you the changes I'm going to make and the things I believe kind of have driven me into this state. And if it's, anything that inspires or helps or anything, just even if it's just one person, I think it was worth the time to sit in front of this camera and kind of suffer through this. Because I'm not going to lie, sitting here on this chair with my back leaning against the pillows, it's horrible. It is super painful. It's causing me to sweat. Like, not good. But I think it was worth it. Okay? So we got one more podcast without Raquel. And then back to status quo. Things will be normal, fun, engaging. I miss having her here, but it's almost back with her. Take care.